Hello everyone. Today we had the Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presenting the budget in the Parliament, and it is a very looked forward date, the 1st of February every year by a lot of professionals and the common public as a whole. By this video, I'm just trying to sum up all the things which I found of importance to all the masses and not just the classes. And obviously, my objective is to reach the masses and not exactly the classes. So I'll just stick to things, especially the taxation budget, which was presented today, because that is my area of expertise and I'll be able to speak better on that. And also for the layman to understand it properly. So to be very honest, a lot of expectations were there from the budget. People were expecting a lot of reliefs, etc. But it was just a bogus budget if we compare it in that context. But still, if we have to sum it up, it's important to understand what exactly happened. So let's just understand it. I'll just take a few minutes. So first thing was, ignorance is a bliss. We hear this quote a lot nowadays. People do use it in different contexts, and the same has been applicable in this budget that was presented. The normal individual income taxpayers and the salaried individuals were looking forward for a lot of incentives, be it in the form of rebate in the tax structure or any deductions that are offered by the Income Tax Act. There has been laid a blind eye upon the same. So no incentives for individual income taxpayers and salaried individuals. Now, we are all aware of how emerging the concept of the virtual digital assets is, VDA. By VDA, I mean, I would probably like to cover things which you all are already aware of, though it's a broader concept, but cryptocurrencies, be it Bitcoin, be it Dogecoin, be it any sort of cryptocurrency, be it NFTs like non-fungible tokens. So RBI, with the help of blockchain technology, will introduce our own digital currency. It is a welcoming move because we are already aware of how our government was quite ignorant to introduce the concept of virtual digital assets in our country, and there was no proper rules, regulation to instigate people to invest into the same, or any provision for people or to give any clear understanding about the same. But now we are seeing initiatives from the government to act upon the same, and it is a welcoming move. Okay, and in this context only, so in the taxation part, there has been 30% tax rate on transfer VDA, virtual digital assets, that is, and so there was no proper structure of taxation on the same, and so there has been clarity on this, clarity provided on the same. Also, no deductions, flat 30%. Obviously, there would be deduction of the cost of acquisition. Let's say you purchase a virtual digital asset for 100 and you sold it for 200. You'll have to pay 30% tax on 200 minus 100 and not the whole amount of 200. That is but obvious, that goes without saying. Okay, and yeah, in case of gifts, taxable in the hands of recipient. So let's say my friend gives me a virtual digital asset. Let's say he gives me a Bitcoin, and so that will, the whole amount would be taxable in my hands. There would be no particular exemption given to the same, and also a 1% TDS rate on exceeding a threshold. That threshold is not clear. It would be there in the finance bill, but there has been imposition of the same. TDS is basically tax deducted at source. So you don't have to wait to file your returns to pay the taxes. Your tax will be deducted immediately by the person who's paying you the amount when you say transfer a virtual digital asset, so that there is no evasion of tax or no possibility of evasion of tax, which is the basic concept of TDS. Okay. Next, there has been a concept of sovereign green bonds, which I particularly found quite interesting. Bonds are basically instruments through which any company would raise amount of money. It's kind of a debt. People would invest in it and they would get interest in it. This is the normal concept of debt. That is what exactly bonds are. They are debt instruments. And for example, in the case of sovereign green bonds, they would be particularly used, since there is a word mentioned, green bonds. These bonds will particularly be used by companies that are involved in developing the green infrastructure, and people who are interested, they would invest in the same. High interest rates and tax incentives are also there for these, though they are not very clear at this point of time, because the budget is basically a summary of what the finance bill has in detail in it. Probably it would be analyzed by experts in the industry in due course of time, which you all can, be updated with. So this is something which is a good opportunity, but still there is no clarity as to if individuals can invest in the same. So we have to wait for that. There is a concept of updated tax returns, which has been introduced. So it is nothing but like the section 139 subsection 5 of the Income Tax Act governs the provisions of the revised return. Let's say if there's a mistake in a return and you realize it at some point of time, you can revise it. And there's a particular time at the end of till which you can actually revise your return. But there has been this concept of introducing updated tax return, which is similar to the concept of revised returns, just that the time limit has been given as to from 2 years till the end of the relevant assessment year. Now, what exactly is assessment year? There is the concept of previous year and assessment year. These two types of years in Income Tax Act. Previous year is the normal year, and assessment year is the year after previous year. Let's say, for example, I'm talking about 31st from 1st April 2021 to 31st March 2022. This is the normal previous year 21-22, but the assessment year would be the next year, assessment year 22-23. Why so? Because the year in which you earn the income, that income would get assessed in the next year, because 31st March 22, the whatever amount of income you earn, you have to pay taxes on it when the amount gets assessed by the income tax authorities in the year which is after April 2020, from April 2022, which is again nothing but previous year 22-23. But since this is assessed as an income of the previous year, there's also a concept of assessment year. So you obviously, so the time limit has been given as from the end of the relevant 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. So let's say, for example, if it's 31st March 22, you can obviously, the assessment year would applicable in this case would be assessment year 23-24. I'm sorry, 22-23, assessment year 22-23, and accordingly from the end of assessment year 22-23, that is 31st March 23, from the, 2 years after it, 31st March 2025, you can update your tax returns, which is also a good move. Now there's a concept of fiscal deficit. What do you mean by deficit? Deficit is nothing but the opposite of surplus. That like we are obviously into a lot of debt, India as a whole, and this fiscal deficit was around 6.9%, but it is expected to be 6.4%, which is still quite high. So we are into the trap of fiscal deficit, but you might, there has been a marginal decrease, but still 6.4 is considered something to be very high, and probably there would be regulations about the same to bring it down. Okay. One personal thing which is not related to the taxation budget, but I found of quite relevance in the prevalent situation was increase in number of mental health centers. The government is quite aware of the situation, the detrimental situation in the country prevalent with the different variants of COVID coming, and it's a very bad situation. And in this situation, with people do have a lot of expectations to meet, be it in their corporate life, be it in personal life, and there are a lot of things happening which are mentally quite disturbing. So government has decided to set up, through linking up with a lot of agencies, setting up a lot of mental health centers, which is a welcoming move, and probably it would be something which is very helpful for all in the long run. And let's just hope that the situation does not prevail for long. And yeah, so that's about the budget. I mean, there have been a lot of other regulation changes in the taxation budget, but I would specifically not like to talk about them because it would not be of interest of the masses, and it is something which is of more technical paramount importance. And basically this is something which a layman can understand as well, and probably have an idea of what was discussed in the budget 2022 with all the hype going all around. But to be honest, in a nutshell, to summarize, it was not something which was expected, and we hope to look at the next budget probably 1 year from now with other expectations and hope of them being met by the government. So thank you very much for sticking till the end of the video. I hope all of you are really keeping well, and take care. Bye-bye.